And we're live. Welcome to Awaken Wars, where we talk about life, love, lessons, and learning. Happy Easter, y'all, because it's Easter today.
Gonna be back after quite a few weeks, few weeks off.
I blame you.
I'm sure you do. One day my parents were here, and then the next day we were just
left.
No, they left on Saturday.
Yeah,
but I don't know, we're just tired and forgot. I remember in the morning, and then we left and did stuff, and by the time we got back, it didn't happen. But here we are. I feel like a decent amount has happened since then.
Go ahead, enlighten us.
We opened a casino. My parents were here for a week.
Made a lot of progress in the other room.
I feel like that.
It's really been 3 weeks since I've...
Yeah, because we skipped 2.
Yeah. So, yeah. And the snow's gone.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was 77 degrees yesterday.
It's fucking insane. It's supposed to be 85 on Tuesday. So that's super exciting. Oh, I didn't do my hair. Fuck. Look at that. Well, it's a good growing opportunity for me.
It's funny, I noticed right when we started. It's all fluffy.
Anyways.
We got new chairs.
Yep. So, what are we talking about today? Identity or thought patterns?
I already told you.
Yeah, but I forgot.
Thought patterns.
Gotcha. So yeah, we all have certain thought patterns. We'll just dive right in. That kind of come from a lot of different influences, but it's how we think about ourselves, or what we're capable of, or even towards other people. So
yeah, normally the 3 things that I chunk it into is thoughts about ourselves, other people, and the world.
So she's a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a therapist.
Yeah, I'm a therapist. And so that's what I talk about with trauma. Because trauma changes the way that we see ourselves, other people, and the world. And so that's how I think about thought patterns and habits also.
So, that being said, thought patterns have a tendency to work for you or against you, obviously, just like anything. And I guess one of the reasons why it brought to my attention is because I have been having a hard time overcoming a particular thought pattern, probably a lot of thought patterns, of I'm not far enough in life for how old I am, or how hard I work or whatever, basically I'm just not far enough in life. So even though I can look at other people and you can talk about comparison, be good or bad, and you can look at this other person that's your same age and he's way ahead, and this other person that is your same age and he's way behind yourself. But so depending on that's even a thought pattern of comparison. So anyways, yeah, I don't know if it's been a struggle. It's been a challenge to overcome that particular thought pattern for me.
Yeah, I agree. Just because I feel like it's one that it's a thought pattern
persistent
for a reason, because we tend to think habitually, so we create habits of thinking. But for you, yeah, I was going to say, I know that one's been around for a long time. You never feel like you're far enough or ahead enough or whatever that.
Yeah, which there's a fine line to that, right? Because that's a driving force as well. So it's
right.
Something that I almost want to keep around to a degree, but I also want to come to terms with. So it's it's a balancing act at the end of the day, because if I focus on I'm not far enough, I'm not far enough, I'm not far enough, then that can steal my inner joy from the present moment. But also on the other side of the same sword, it's pushes me to become better, to become more, to have more, to get further. So
yeah, I was thinking about that because I was thinking, if I had more of that feeling, I'd probably have a little bit more motivation and, fire under my butt. But as you were saying that just now, it made me think about, It can be a driving factor, it can be a motivator, but for what? Because you never actually feel like you're enough or like that you're far enough, ahead enough anyway. So like it is motivating you, but what is it motivating you toward? Because if you never have that like flip side of that sword or the coin of like appreciating where you are, then there's no point to that motive. Not no point, but it just doesn't give you that internal sense of like contentment and peace and happiness. It gives you like external stuff to kind of give you like markers for like I am making moves, things are happening. But it doesn't, you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I think you're wrong.
I asked a question, so I don't know how I can be wrong. I said, what is it motivating you toward?
Oh, what is it motivating towards? More happiness and more money, more deeper relationship.
But you never feel like you like attain that. So far. Thus far. You feel
It
like
doesn't. It doesn't matter whether I feel like I obtain it. I do obtain it. It doesn't. I don't need to feel like I obtain it, because I do obtain it. I know that might be a confusing thing for you.
That's
so
very confusing, because how do you sit in that and celebrate that? And
I know that's the thing. I don't celebrate, and that's the point. Like that's the challenge. I don't celebrate essentially. Like even though I get more money or I get this or I get that, like okay, because I pushed harder, right? I get that particular thing, but I just don't enjoy it. I get those things. I obtain those things.
So then what is... That's what I'm saying.
It's a thought pattern that I'm trying to overcome.
Okay.
So I'm not enjoying it, even though I obtain something, it doesn't mean I necessarily have to enjoy it. You know what I mean?
I mean, you don't have to, but as humans we get to. If we...
You get to if you choose to.
Right.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you for sure will.
Right.
So,
but why is the universe going to give you more if you don't love and appreciate what you have now? But I'm hearing you. Like, that's something you are working on overcoming, so...
What's some of your thought patterns? Fucking, I think the world's out to get me.
Bull! Oh my gosh. You're ridiculous. I don't think they're out to get me. I just don't want our dog to kill anybody.
Yeah, some motherfucker's just gonna walk in. That's what we have the dog for. If they walk in my house, they're supposed to get attacked. That's the point.
Anyway, that is not a thought pattern.
Clearly.
I don't think that the world is out to get me. I very rarely think that. And I very rarely have fear around, like, being out in the world. Thought patterns. I mean, we've talked about this one. I don't remember in what episode, but just the, like my...
Self-worth?
Yeah, my worthiness, like feeling not good enough. Which, and we talked about this in the codependency episode, so another plug for another episode. But I think that one comes a lot from my codependency because I don't feel good enough specifically for you, which you bring back to like, well, if I felt good enough for myself, then I would feel good enough for you. So you believe that I maybe don't feel good enough for myself. But I also fully recognize that our relationship, because our intimate relationships are like that it is very reflective of a lot of stuff for me. So like if I weren't in a relationship, I don't think that I would struggle as much with my worthiness. But I am in like an intimate relationship with somebody, so there are triggers and there are...
I think you would, regardless. Triggers would come from a different space, or yeah, you wouldn't have those. You would have those triggers, they just wouldn't be triggered.
Yeah, I guess...
The wound because, there is just not being
comparison for me is not super helpful. So like there would still be social media, there would still be all these things that I would then be like, wow, I don't have that, I'm not good enough.
And then it might be even worse if you're in the dating game because then you have competition and stuff.
I can't even imagine.
It'd just be a different angle. I think the wounds would still be there. They might just not get poked.
It'd be slower growth in that area. Like that's what Sean and Zach had an episode about that. Like when you're in a relationship, you are like not forced to face, but face with that stuff a lot. And when you're not in a relationship, you don't have to like look at those shadowy parts as much. You don't have to grow as much because it is just you.
Yeah. So, and I have other thought patterns as well. I just can't think of any particular at the moment.
Ooh, another one for me is catastrophizing. Like I have a thought pattern to go to worst case scenario when something tweaks my anxiety.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I know that about myself. I catastrophize for sure, but even just yesterday, like, I had an opportunity to go through some sensations of anxiety and like dissected my fear, because that pattern, like, I didn't have to try, that just like came to me. That was instantly the first thing that like, yeah, came to me.
Another, I guess, thought pattern that I hold is like, and this is kind of like a self-belief and identity thing, but it's also a thought pattern of like, I have anxiety, like or I have ADHD, or I hold these thought patterns of self-belief. So, of like me, well, that's how I am. What also thought patterns of myself that are positive are like, I feel like I am always relatively in shape, like, and that's another one, like, a lot of other days I'll feel like, wow, you're a fat lard, like, or you're a skinny bitch.
Another one I think that you, like, most of the time hold is like your work ethic. Like, you fully believe that you can like outwork.
Yeah, and I believe I can learn anything. I believe I can learn anything, and I believe I'm a fast learner, and that's a thought pattern I have. And this is, again, maybe we'll do our next episode on identity, but like that, like, they go, thought patterns and identity are very intertwined.
That's what I was thinking about, because a lot of them so far that we've had examples are like, I am, kind of.
Yeah.
But that's why I brought up like the catastrophizing, because that's definitely a pattern that's generalizable.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like an I am belief, it's like, although the belief behind that is that I catastrophize, so like I guess there is still like an identity piece behind that, because I know that I engage in that pattern when I have anxiety, and so then I believe that that's what I do, and so that's going to continue to happen if that's my belief.
Yeah. So how do you change thought patterns? That's the question. The first thing, and this is always will be the foundation of anything, is awareness. And I don't know, I'm sure I've mentioned this story numerous times at this point because it's such a life thing. It just kind of popped in my head. I'm reading a book right now. It talks about, a lot about consciousness and stuff. So now I'm enlightened beyond belief. So
that's a thought pattern you have. As soon as you start a super spiritual book, you're like, oh, I'm amazing.
I am fucking amazing.
Like, good grief, you're like 12 pages in. Shut up. Anyway.
So anyways, fucking, it brought to my, it talks about awareness and stuff, and one day I was driving through Grand Rapids on the highway, and I still remember it was the accident on 28th Street, and I'm just like, what's the key to my self-development? I was like, why have I been able to grow exponentially so fast? And I was like, what are people missing? And it was particular, I was thinking about my sister, and I'm like, man, it's self-awareness. And then that's the game changer popped in my head. And then I looked up, or I saw in front of me, this truck said game changer. So then I was like, holy shit, that's fucking crazy. Did I think that, or did I see that first? My subconscious thought about, that word. And then, so I was like, well, then I started talking myself out of it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, oh, my subconscious just saw it first. My subconscious saw it first, and then that's why I came up with the word. That's why. And so I'm sitting behind this truck, and literally the fucking on this exit, and I'm about to turn left, and I'm behind this truck turns, and literally on the board, it talks about job postings and stuff, and it says it's a game changer. And I was like, holy fuck. Like, if that's not a sign, yeah, on a billboard. And I was like, if that's not a fucking sign and an affirmation, like, affirmation of like what? Confirmation, there we go. Of what I had thought, I'm like, I don't fucking know what it is. So I'm like, dude, that's so insane. So like, self-awareness to me is like the first key to anything, because we have these thought patterns, we hold these thought patterns, and then we'll just like go in, and just like any addict and stuff, like you'll get cravings and stuff like that, and then you'll like have these thought patterns like, oh fuck, they'll go in and out, and then at that point, it just depends on how your willpower, once you recognize that thought pattern, of whether you can change it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, because if you're not aware of something, there's no changing it anyway. So first step is becoming aware of that. And that's, I mean, one thing I talk to my clients about, like when I initially start talking about the thoughts that are in your head and the voice that's in there and all of these things, is like, just practice awareness for a while. Because it can feel super overwhelming to once you start noticing those things, like, oh my gosh, what do I do with that? And how do I change that? And like, just notice for a bit. Because if you haven't noticed for 30, 40, 50 years, like, just becoming aware takes a lot and can be a lot. And so I'm like, just be aware for a bit.
Even if you become aware, then it's like the fact that you have to come to terms with it. Because, like, awareness
Right.
is, being aware is the first step, and then you got to come to terms with and, like, acknowledge that, you know, okay, this is who I am. And a lot of people have a problem with acknowledging who they are. You
I was
know,
gonna say
like,
some form of acceptance, which
I can,
like acceptance doesn't mean that like the behavior is justified or okay, but there's still just this like, okay, that is what's happening right now. It doesn't mean that you won't change, but if there's resistance to where you're at, that's going to keep you from changing as well.
yeah. So a lot of people like deny. Like, I don't do that. You know, all kinds of fucking stupid shit. Um, I mean, you were just experiencing it last week, basically, um, and multiple different conversations. I feel like, you know,
I mean, I do, yeah,
numerous times with
yeah,
multiple different people.
I do on a regular basis, even just at work. But that like the ones last week were just more personal.
Yeah, and thrown in your face a lot harder. Um, so yeah, where were we at? Acknowledging.
Acceptance, acknowledgement.
Yeah, accepting and acknowledging it is acknowledging it and then accepting it basically.
I think like because when we talk about like changing your thought patterns, like it sounds great, like okay, awesome, but like how do you literally do that? How do
Yeah.
you do that? How do you work on your thoughts?
I think it comes down to action. You could do things that disagree with that particular thing. I think action beats everything. Because, like, you can sit there and think as much as you want, try to think your way out of a thought pattern, but that doesn't help, you know?
Mm-mm.
Like, because, like, even pornography, when I was dealing with that, like, consistently and in my face all the time, you know? Like, I know Brad had mentioned, Mars Brad, had mentioned, like, he likes to go run or go take a cold shower or something. And that's what a lot of that, the Way of the Peaceful Warrior talks about a little bit. It's a novel, and he talks about basically like, or he gives examples and he just throws them in the cold water or whatever, and then it changes his thought process because it like breaks that. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
having a dog. When your dog's like starting to fucking get all irritated and stuff, you have to break its concentration. You have to fucking kick it or fucking smack it or whatever.
Well,
You know
if
what
you
I
think
mean?
about like when sis, and I could tell she was getting kind of weird, like I was like, hey, sis, because then she like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
she like breaks her concentration from on that thing.
Yeah. So like when you start recognizing, you have to be able to recognize that you're going into that thought pattern, or at some point while you're in it, be like, oh fuck, what am I doing? You know, like it's kind of like, and that's where meditation comes into play, I think, because it's like, you know, you're practicing over and over again to overcome, you know, like, okay, you're just focusing on your breath, and then, you know, you start wandering off and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing something here. I'm like, fuck. And then you stop,
You
and then
bring
you
it
bring your
back.
back. You know, same thing goes with any thought pattern or whatever. So there's obviously, it's very challenging because there's a lot of emotion, I think, tied to thought patterns typically, especially if
When
it's like self-worth, you know, and
that's
that's probably why it's so hard for you to break it.
that's what I was like thinking about too, because there are some like obviously you have a brain, so doing some thought processing and doing some thought like using your cognitive abilities, I think, can be helpful when it comes to our thought patterns, but it's not going to be the only way to be able to break those. So action can be helpful, but I also think because, and that's what the emotion piece, like there are emotions attached to the thoughts that we have. Thoughts usually create emotions. So then one thing that Abraham Hicks talks about and then Sarah talks about a lot is like grabbing onto the better feeling thought. So if you do happen to catch yourself in a thought pattern, because you will, especially when you start to become aware, you'll all of a sudden notice that you're there. And you're like, geez, oh Pete, like I wasn't even fully aware of the last 5 minutes when I was just in the spirally cycle of these thoughts that are crap, but now I'm catching it. And then you can have a choice and to use your thoughts and like, okay, does that feel good to think that? Like I ask my clients that all the time when they're like, so and so made me this, and or this gives me so much anxiety, or this blah blah blah, and then I said, okay, like how does that thought feel? And I'm like, well, like crap. Okay, so can you think of a better feeling thought? And it doesn't have to be like a complete opposite. So like if my thought pattern is like I'm not enough, I'm unworthy. It's usually not enough. Unworthy is not necessarily the thought I hear, but I'm not enough or I'm not good enough. then, and I catch that, then I can ask myself, like, how does that feel? Obviously, it feels like crap. It feels defeating. What's a better feeling thought? And it's not going to be like, I am good enough, because my brain and my body can't get behind that. Like, I don't believe that. So, like, what is better feeling, though? I can think, like...
I can become better.
Right. Or I'm in the process of working on my self-esteem, and I'm, like, I have the ability to feel like I am good enough, things like that, versus just, like, flipping the script.
Mine would be I can become better. Like, where I'm at now, if I'm unhappy with where I'm at or something, like, if I'm not good enough, I think it's like, well, I'm on my way to becoming better or whatever, like putting basically action moves to make make myself feel more valuable or worthy or whatever else. Like, oh, I'm reading a book.
That's also
now.
so masculine, though. To do.
Yeah, could be, but it fucking
like,
works.
because I was also thinking, like, the feminine piece of that is, like, I also need to, like, part of that acceptance maybe is, like, recognizing that, like, the feminine part, the energetics of, like, my being now. Because I think doing can help. Because I'm even thinking about, like, running the ultra marathons and whatever. Like, that proves to myself that I am good at something and I can do shit. And I am, like, can have grit when I need to and all that stuff. But that's not artificial, but it's only one part of it. Like, the masculine doing can be helpful, but there's also the feminine, like, being.
Two things. Not everybody should have value in their life unless they fucking earn it.
That's the belief that you have.
That's fine. Like, if you're some fat lard that sits around on his couch and does nothing and produces nothing and, has no actual value, then I would say, like, fuck you, you deserve to feel like that. You've earned that feeling. But you can earn a different feeling if you go out and do something, help the community, blah, blah, insert here,
My belief with that, because I believe that because the universe has manifested you onto this planet, like, that in itself is a freaking miracle, and so there's, like, some sort of value in that on its own, period. That's my belief. I recognize where you're coming from, though, because if you're not contributing to society, if you're not working, like, doing stuff for yourself and your family and all of that, like, I get where you're coming from, but I think on the most basic level, for me, that's where everybody is worth, I think, comes from, for me.
Two, you mentioned the fact that, like, your clients or whatever would experience sensations of anxiety and whatever else. And while going into patterns, we can discuss, like, the fact that, yes, your body has its own patterns as well, because not only are you thinking patterns, but your body patterns, so then you'll get sensations of anxiety. Your body's addicted to those specific, hormones and, endorphins and shit like that. So, even for the fact, like, I'd say, I don't know, it's probably 50-50. It's probably like, 3 to 4 days a week I go downstairs or I go work out to some degree at some way. Like, that's a pattern. That's a fucking pattern where my body basically gets those endorphins, and, like, sometimes I want to go work out and there's a lot of times that I have no fucking desire to work out. But that's a pattern as well, so.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people don't acknowledge their chemical addiction inside those thought patterns as well, because it's a very complex, your body's very complex, and you got your mind and your soul and your spirit, whatever, and there's a lot of dynamic that has to play.
And I have those conversations pretty regularly too about, like, in general, like, our addiction to chaos and because even if our thought patterns do feel like crap and we recognize that, we can be addicted to that feeling. If feeling like crap and feeling down about ourselves is familiar, our brain is going to want to go back to that, even if it feels like crap. So it's like when our bodies are used to those hormones, like stress, cortisol, and all of that, like, that is going to be, by default, how our brain is going to go. And that's when, like you said it in the beginning, but, like, you can use your brain, like, for you, or by default it will go against you. Like, I don't know why we're wired that way.
It doesn't go against you, it's there to protect you,
I guess. But in terms of, like, self-growth and enlightenment and all of that stuff, like evolution,
it's for
your brain doesn't want any of that.
That's what it comes down to, self-preservation. If you go out and do something unknown, you could die.
Right.
If you go, that's what it is. It's self-preservation. So you'd rather stay in your house and, you know, eat bonbons, even though, like, realistically, you're fucking, you know, killing yourself in more ways than you think, you know.
And it sounds dramatic, but that really is how it is. Like, even, because I journaled yesterday after what did I do? I went to the gym here, like, and moved my body. I did, like, an integrative breathwork session to, like, shift my anxiety, and then I even journaled, but, like, in my journaling, I even, like, thanked that part of me. Like, thank you for showing up. Like, I recognize that you, like, care about this person. That's why you're here. Like, for me, that wasn't a I'm gonna die situation. I don't know, maybe, though, because, like, if this thing happened, that's gonna be so bad that I'm gonna die. And, yeah, it sounds dramatic, but that's where your brain goes to.
Yeah, coming to terms with death, I think, is, you know, will help you overcome that as well. So, like, consciously. If you can consciously come to terms with death, then you'll be a lot better off and a lot stronger because you'll be willing to take more risks and, you know, step out of line and, you know, go against the grain and.
Yeah, I mean, you're still gonna have that, though. Like,
what?
your brain's still gonna have that.
To a degree, but yes, I agree 100%. You'll always have that, basically. I mean, I'm sure there's outliers, but then, you know, if you can come to terms with it consciously, then you'll be better off subconsciously.
And that's why I think, like, some of the masculine doing can be helpful, because you can, like, the cookie jar thing. The cookie jar thing. Like, you have experiences to pull from. You have things that you've done to be like, I can do hard things. Like, I will not die. I've overcome this. I'll be okay. Like,
yeah.
So that can be helpful. I think obviously you can pull some feminine, like, being situations into that kind of way to shift the patterns too, but.
So the feminine is just like, I'm here, so I'm fucking entitled to feel good.
No.
Is that the concept? So what's the concept?
Masculine is doing.
Yeah.
Feminine is being.
Okay.
So
I'm being
the
here,
energetic.
so I deserve to feel good.
What?
I'm fucking being here, so I deserve to feel good.
How are you being, though? No. So when I brought up that belief of mine that everybody is worthy just because they were manifested onto this planet by universe,
The universe thinks they're worthy, I think. God, whatever. But
Montana Walcott doesn't.
No. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. It depends on the individual. But a lot of these motherfuckers want to fucking do nothing, and then they wonder why they don't feel good.
Well, yeah.
Gee, because you're fucking worthless.
Yeah, and it's like the cyclical, like, they feel like crap, so they don't do anything, and then they feel like crap because they didn't do anything, and so they're just in this cycle.
Yeah.
But
so you gotta
feminine
break the cycle.
is...
That's the pattern. That's the pattern right there. That's a fucking pattern. So that's what you have to realize and you have to break.
Yeah. Break the cycle.
Yeah. Break the pattern.
Yeah. I don't know.
So basically, I'm just right, and...
No.
No? I'm not right?
About what?
Everything.
All the things. See, that's a belief, a pattern, a thought pattern you have that you're, like, always right. Although you are right a lot of times, but...
I'm right probably fucking 80 to 90% of the time, I'd say.
You do 80.
You'd give me 80, but that's a biased opinion. So, I'll give me 90.
Yeah, but I have more experiences with you to be able to pull a more accurate number.
I have more experiences with me because I have the experiences outside of your experiences.
Yours also super biased.
Because when are we going to catch that? Jesus.
Anywho.
So yeah, I mean, and this is a great time to fucking start changing everything too because
Spring.
I was getting to that, so thanks. Fucking idiot. Jesus.
Hey. That's not
nice.
I'm glad you said so.
Yeah, it's spring. So
what does that mean?
Things are changing.
Right.
Yeah.
Rebirth, renewal, regrowth.
Yeah.
Refresh.
So, anyways, yeah, change your fucking thought patterns and you'll, probably live a much happier and much more productive life, So, I always think of like the reason why people should want to change is, not only for themselves, but also for their children because you should be trying to do better than what your parents did.
Should.
Yeah. Well, that is definitely a should for me. So, it's a hard should.
Oh, I want to back up just a little bit because changing your patterns and you'll live a better life. Huh?
Hmm?
I don't know what.
Good.
Clearly you had something to say.
Sit back there, don't choke up.
Oh, okay.
Jesus.
Stop! Okay. Change your thought patterns and you'll live a better life. I also think like recognizing where you do maybe have like helpful, beneficial, strong, positive thought patterns and cultivate more of that. Because kind of like being addicted to the stress hormones and the chaos and all of that, we can unlearn that and start to shift that and start to be more comfortable with feel good and positivity and things like that. So like if you do notice when you have thought patterns that you're like, wow, that actually was like one that was helpful, or I caught that and I actually feel good about it, like, great, cultivate more of that.
And take time if you're going to do something, like if you're going to take time to change your thought patterns. Because reading, for instance, is a incredible light, I guess, to shine a light on your particular blind spots and thought patterns and stuff like that. So take the time to do that, and they can change your thought patterns once because otherwise you're always just pounded by the same thing. Your parents believe this, your spouse believes that, and then that's basically, your friends believe the other thing, and, odds are they're all very similar. And then you're always going to get pounded with the same thought pattern or the same concept, idea, whatever. So books, when you read them, can be a very helpful thing to change your thought pattern process. So regardless of whether it's masculine or feminine or whatever else, whether it's an action or, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Books are one of the top things I would say that can radically change your thought patterns because of that. So when you do those things, I would highly encourage people to like take time and set aside time intentionally to actually focus on doing that rather than, people will easily get distracted and try to feed the kid while they're reading or, fucking watch TV while they're reading or doing stupid shit like that. And then your odds are you're not getting you're not embodying it, You're like, it's impossible.
I was going to say that too, because books are great, obviously. We are big proponents for reading. But there's also the embodying of it, because you can read, and pound all this stuff into your brain and it mean absolutely nothing to you if you don't actually put those things into practice. But I recognize too that getting that good in is also good. Like, that's a step in the right direction. If you're going to read a ton, like, yes, that is a step and that is good. And there's also the embodying piece.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I have not read this book, but it's giving me
Goosebumps.
Breaking the Habit. It's giving me the whatever vibes, I was gonna say, but Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
The whatever vibes. What are the whatever?
I was gonna say it's giving me Dr. Joe Dispenza vibes because Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is a book that he wrote that I feel like we probably have, but I haven't.
It's a blue book or a white book with a brain. It's a blue
swirly thing.
I thought it had like a maze.
I'm pretty sure.
Cycle, I guess, would make more sense. So it should be swirly things. But yeah, like people will go through their whole fucking life with the same patterns. Like the same patterns because you have patterns like, like I yell at you, you fucking cry, blah, blah, blah. Not that I do yell at you, but I should probably. But
I cry a lot less than I used to.
Yeah.
Not that crying's bad.
But like, there's just a lot of patterns that like can be engaged by other people. Your kid does this, so you freak out or whatever. Or it's just a lot of patterns. Like, for instance, like, if you're someone near and dear to you dies or whatever, and then you're holding on to that for years and years and years, like there's a lot of things that can like ignite that pattern of sorrow or mourning or whatever, and it just progresses over and over and over again, and then it'll last their whole fucking life, and they'll be talking about their deceased spouse or whatever parent the rest of their fucking life, even though there's really, like, move the fuck on. Like, that's a pattern, Like, you have to be able to break that pattern in order to move on with your life, so.
And the more feminine side of that, me, recognizes that, like, we are human, and we will continue for the rest of our lives to fall into patterns, and sometimes grief is one of those.
Yeah, a pattern, not the same pattern. Move on. Take minute steps. Fucking take
This is
steps.
somebody who's never experienced a major loss.
Oh,
but
I bet you I'll fucking do
I'm
it
not.
just fine.
I'm just saying that is like your bias experience.
I lost Teddy, and he was fucking.
And I'm also
He was
recognizing.
literally my best friend for fucking over half my life. So.
I'm also recognizing that. Yeah, there will never be a point when we don't engage in patterns, especially because some of those are positive, but even the more like uncomfortable negative ones, like we will.
Get new patterns. That's the point. Like that's the point for me. Like move on to new patterns. Don't stay on the same patterns and the same level of life for your entire life. And then, at the end just be like, oh wow, this was fucking
Some people
awesome.
want that.
No one wants that.
That's not true.
They think they want that, but they don't want that. No one fucking wants that. Everybody wants growth. Every single person in the fucking world wants growth. It's literally either you're growing or you're dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people choose to die, and that is their choice.
They choose to die, yes, but they don't want to die. Everybody's like literally like, oh my god, you just said this subconsciously, like fucking no one wants to die. Literally, is what we just discussed.
That's not true.
Subconsciously, no one wants to die.
I have many clients who are suicidal.
Yeah, it's consciously though. That's consciously. Subconsciously, you don't want to die. Subconsciously, you're self-preservation.
Everything is okay.
I'm gonna punch you in the head.
You don't want that.
I
subconsciously,
do.
you don't.
I do.
You don't
Consciously
want that.
and subconsciously. Subconsciously, you don't want me to punch you in the head. That's why
Consciously, I don't want you to either.
Anyways, so that's the point. Like, just get new fucking patterns and, break patterns and then fucking move on to new shitty patterns.
It's that easy.
Better.
It's simple, but it's not easy. That is like my favorite thing to say because it's so true. It is just a choice, but it's not easy.
Yeah, and like patterns aren't an addiction, like we choose, like, yeah, we still choose to some degree, but it's like autopilot. So it's like the doing and the not doing, like Alan Watts talks about. Like, am I the puppet, or is everything happening, to me?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same fucking thing. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. Patterns are extremely interesting, and you can go from patterns for like chemical addictions, patterns to fucking arguing and stuff. Like oh gee, like what was one of our patterns like. Back in the day, you do something stupid, I'd get mad, and then I wouldn't talk to you for like 3 months, and then...
Even still, sometimes that one shows up. I'll do something, like when I locked the door. You were like actually very mad because it inconvenienced your life. You had to go through the garage.
It was inconvenience, yes. But also, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is who I'm living with?
Oh, shut
up. I'm like,
up.
What the fuck am I doing?
And then came, well, don't start shit with me. That's like I'll do something unconscious, which that wasn't unconsciously. Sometimes I'll just like be snippy and triggered and something, so I like snap at you, and then you have a response, and then it comes to like, well, don't start shit with me then.
Yeah, that's a pattern. You'll fucking be rude to me, and then I'll have to be rude back.
Have to!
Wow.
It's
the only way, like, I want to match you. I don't want, if I didn't match you,
then... It's the only way.
Yeah, it's the only way.
Free will. I was just saying that a bunch this morning. Free will. Because I mentioned another way to go to where this destination we were going to, and so you took it, and then you're like, oh man, the light turned green, we could have already been there, brr, brr, brr. And then your dad was like, well, you said you made me go this way. Or maybe your dad said that.
Yeah.
You made him go that way. And I said, made him?
Yeah, I said that, and then my dad agreed.
Yeah, because like, well, if you wouldn't have put it in his head.
Exactly.
Oh, free
will. You planted a seed.
Free will.
Planted a seed. I have no free will. Yeah. You control me.
And you have the ability to nurture that seed or not.
Another update also is, ooh! So here's a fucking pattern. kind of. A small pattern, I guess. Yeah, you're excited, just like the audience is. You're just like, oh my god, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat.
I've been sitting on the edge of my seat because otherwise I'm like this.
Put it up against the fucking wall.
No, I'm not about to freaking be all up on the wall.
So, I kind of sank into a pattern of like, I don't even know exactly how to put this. Long story short, my Achilles heel has been fucked up. And then, so, I kind of got, I've been off running for about 5 weeks. And probably 2, 3 of these weeks, I was supposed to be doing these exercises that I talked with the physical therapist recommended. And so I was icing for the first 2 weeks. I didn't do anything because I didn't know any better. And then the next week, I talked to the physical therapist, and she had mentioned, things to do. So I started doing those, and I just did pretty good at those. I could have done a lot better, but I could always do a lot better. Then the next week it kind of got like, okay, now I'm only icing. And then the next week I came back to her, and she's like, well, how are your exercises doing? I'm like, well, to be honest, I'm not really, haven't really been doing them super consistently, hardly at all. So she basically called me the fuck out in the middle of yoga and said that I was a giant piece of shit.
No, she did not.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's a story you're telling yourself.
But anyways, I kind of went through this pattern of I wasn't going to be prepared, so I'm just like, fuck it, I'm not gonna do it. So I went through this whole pattern deal, and then she kind of snapped me out of my pattern, and I still don't think she fully understands the task at hand, which she doesn't. But she's not wrong.
The principle of her point was spot on.
Yeah, the principle of her point is spot on, because I'm not starting out from zero and then working my way up. I'm basically starting myself out from -10, and then I gotta get back to base, and then I gotta fucking go.
But she was like, because he was like, do you think I could be ready for this? And she said, well, no. She's like, you're not trying.
This rate. Yeah.
She's like, not at the rate that you're doing these your exercises and stuff. She's like, you're not even trying to be ready.
Yeah. And so I had developed a pattern of, I had developed a thought pattern of basically I talked myself out of doing this thing. And at this point, I'm basically fuck it. Unless my Achilles is just fucked, absolutely fucked, I'm getting on that line whether I think I'm ready or not. Unfortunately. Which I really don't want to do, but I'm just I'm going to make a point, and if I only get 50, I get 50. And if I get fucking 70, I get 70. If I get 20, I get 20. I'm just fuck it. I'm going to fucking step on that line, and I will go as far as I can regardless. Because before, my thought process was okay, I need to get my fucking... At the end of the day, I need to get my knees and my ankles conditioned, because that's where my pain comes from. You literally can't physically fucking walk because your shit hurts so bad. And so then I was basically trying to explain to her, do you think I can not only get my Achilles healed fast enough, but also in the matter of less than 3 months, get my fucking knees and ankles conditioned in order to accomplish the task? And I don't think she understands what goes into that, the second half. She probably understands and thinks yeah, you could your Achilles heel could probably be ready in 2.5 months. I'm thinking, yeah, but she doesn't understand fuck, I've already lost 2 months now of training, and I'm fucked now.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's a PT, so she knows her side of it, right? If you were to ask Jeff,
yep.
He might be able to be what?
Jeff's you're fucked.
Did you ask him?
No, I didn't ask him. He said, when I told him I wanted to do it last time, he was like, dude, we need to train now. Because I was well, I read online that it only took about 12 weeks to do it. And he's like, no, you need to go now. And he's like, oh my fuck. Because you're going from 0 to 100, and fucking, that's insane. So, yeah, fuck. It sucks. What were you going for earlier? Oh, I thought you had something.
No.
I thought you had a thought.
Not me.
Not me.
Sometimes I'll say, what do I say?
I don't fucking know what you say.
I'll say what was I? Or, I don't remember. Just when you say did it hurt? What do I say before that? I had thought, or I was thinking, or did it hurt?
I tell you not to do that. Just don't think. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, that's annoying too. Okay. Wrap up. I gotta go make Easter
Wrap
food.
it up. This isn't. Never mind.
I already got it.
Go ahead. Fuck you. Do it.
What?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you like to do the whole picture.
No, I'll let you do the whole picture.
I don't
today.
do the whole picture.
Yeah,
I
you do
don't.
the
My
whole
brain
picture.
doesn't work like that.
Do
I
a
don't
big
care.
picture.
I just experienced the whole past 45 minutes. I don't need it all in a pretty bow.
Well, if you need another picture, then just rewatch the shit. So maybe I'll get our views up too. If
There
I
you
don't
go.
recap it, then I'll have to go like, whoa, what did she say?
I mean, we talked about it a lot. Thought patterns. That was our topic.
Yeah, and how to beat them, and how
And how to
you
help.
can enhance your life if you start getting new thought patterns so that work to your benefit.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Why are you talking like that?
Because you just talk like a robot. Are you AI? Okay.
I know. Do you ever notice AI is initials for somebody?
Oh my gosh! That's kind of creepy. Okay. Wrapping it up. Okay. What do we have? Follow us on Facebook. Nope. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to YouTube. I say this often. I've been saying it for like a year at this point. One day soon, our stuff will get beefed up and it'll be more than just announcements. But that's what we have right now.
Yeah. So that's all we got. This is a good episode for sure. So I know that for a fact. So share it to all your friends that have shitty patterns and your spouses that have self-belief patterns, because they can fix themselves with our techniques.
Oi. You are not broken. There's nothing to be fixed. There are things to evolve and enhance and change.
Well, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.
Have a good day. Happy Easter.
Bye.